Public hearing. The city encourages your interest and participation in the public hearing process. Planning Commission is an advisory board to the City Council on land use and zoning matters. The meeting agenda items are development applications that require public hearings. The Planning Commission considers the request and makes a recommendation for approval or denial to the City Council. The City Council makes the final decision for or against approval of the application. The agenda will consist of the roll call, minutes, approval of prior meeting. Continuances are for items that will not be heard tonight. Withdrawals are for items that have been withdrawn for any further consideration. Consent agenda items is for items not likely to require a presentation or discussion. All items on the consent agenda may be voted on together. Any commissioner may move any item from the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Then we'll have our regular agenda, which is where each item is a presentation and a recommendation by staff, a presentation by the applicant, and public testimony. After the applicant will have the opportunity to respond to the public testimony. The Planning Commission then discusses the cases and votes. Then we'll have non-action items, which is for items for discussion. No vote will be made by Planning Commission. Citizens wishing to speak on any agenda item may fill out a blue speaker card, which are up here at the desk, or if not willing to speak, may fill out a yellow comment card and turn it in at the staff table before the agenda item is to be discussed. The chair will call you by name when it is your turn to speak. When called, come to the podium, state your name and address, and then begin speaking. Groups wishing to speak should elect a spokesperson to represent the views of the group. To facilitate the meeting, your comment will be limited to 3 minutes. For individual speakers, with 1 additional minute for each additional individual present at the meeting who has contributed their time to a representative speaker, up to a maximum of 10 minutes. Please format your speech to be accommodated within the applicable time frame given. So for tonight's meeting, there's overflow seating in the One Civic Center building across the street, where this meeting will also be broadcast on the Scottsdale Video Network. You may also submit a blue request to speak card or a yellow comment card to city staff while in the One Civic Center building. Speakers will be announced in groups of 3 to allow time to make their way to City Hall to speak. For convenience and timing presentations, a light system is installed on the podium. The light will be green for 2 minutes and yellow for 1 minute. Please conclude your comments when the red light appears. Thank you for your interest and time. Now we'll begin the meeting with a roll call.
Vice Chair Young.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Present.
Commissioner Kaminsky.
Here.
Commissioner Ertel.
Here.
Commissioner Joyner.
Here.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Here.
All here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Now we're on for public comment. Is there any public comment, Mr. Curtis?
Mr. Chairman, no public comment for non-agendized items.
Great, thank you. And then we'll move on to the administrative report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman or Vice Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Just wanted to draw your attention to additional correspondence regarding to tonight's Axon case that's in front of you. And then there's also one support letter for the abandonment case on the consent agenda. Then I wanted to also remind you that for November, we only have 1 meeting in November, and that's today. And our next scheduled meeting will be December 11th. And we do have anticipated items for December 11th. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Curtis. Moving on, we've got the approval of the meeting minutes for October 23rd. I'd like to ask for an approval of regular meeting minutes from October 23rd.
So moved.
We got a motion
Second.
and a second. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Vice Chair Young.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Yes.
Commissioner Kaminsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel.
Yes.
Commissioner Joyner.
Yes.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to consent agenda. Is there anybody that would like to move any of the consent agenda items to regular questions? No? All right, so we could probably then vote for both items 2 and 3. Can I get a motion, please?
Vice Chair, I'll go ahead and make a motion for recommendation of approval to City Council for cases 2AB 2024 and 5AB 2024 per the staff recommended stipulations after finding that the proposed abandonments are consistent and conform with the adopted general plan.
Thank you. So we
Second.
have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaminsky,
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel,
Yes.
Commissioner Joyner,
Yes.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And I believe we have one recusal for regular agenda. Mr. Curtis, I'm assuming we'll hear both item 4 and 5 as one presentation, is that right?
Yes, Vice Chairman, that's the plan. Thank
Okay,
you.
Great, thank you.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Terry Kilgore, Economic Development Director for the City of Scottsdale. And before we get into the land use details that you're used to hearing about, I wanted to provide a little context of why the proposal before you this evening is important from an economic development perspective. In fact, this project began 5 years ago as an effort from economic development to try to retain a major employer within Scottsdale. As you know, there's been significant media coverage and lots of discussion on this topic. And so we wanted to share a perspective of why this is of value to the community for consideration. So land use is built with input from a wide range of stakeholders, but the reality is over time land use changes to accommodate industry trends and new visions for the use of land. One thing that this project does is align with the strategic vision outlined in the general plan around community prosperity. From the goal of community prosperity, the Economic Development Strategic Plan focuses on the efforts to attract and retain high-quality jobs for our community, which this proposal does. It even brings a little bit of tourism, which is baked into the general plan as well. Strategically, in the Council-adopted Economic Development Strategic Plan, this proposal hits 2 of our 6 major market segments, technology and corporate headquarters, both of which are challenging to attract. And so as you consider the use of this land, I would ask that you also consider the important impact that this has on our economic base. There are currently 850 employees. These are our neighbors, families, and friends who are employed by Axon currently, with an additional 650 planned in the future, and honestly, probably more than that. This is a unique company in that the mission and values align with our community values and focus on public safety. Their mission is to build better tools for public safety through technology, and they serve over 18,000 public safety agencies in over 100 countries, as well as the Departments of Defense and Veteran Affairs. What we hear from major employers looking at new site locations is the importance of housing proximate to their campuses. This is true across industries, but it's especially true for tech. If you look at the modern tech campuses being built by Google, Facebook, Apple, and Microsoft, they frequently include apartments and hotels adjacent to provide service to their employees and customer base. Part of this model brings in people both regionally, nationally, and internationally for training on trends and technology on site. What we know is that people visiting Scottsdale increase the likelihood that they consider Scottsdale as a place to locate a business and our brand awareness as an international headquarters and hub for technology and innovation. With that, I appreciate the opportunity to provide you comments, and we'll turn it back to Taylor Reynolds from Long Range Planning to provide more detail.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young, members of the Commission. I'm Taylor Reynolds, Principal Planner with Long Range Planning. And if I can get the presentation up. I'm here to present the minor amendment, minor general plan amendment portion of this request this evening, and then I will hand it over to Greg Bloomberg, who is also a Principal Planner in Planning. So with that, the subject site is located on the south side of the Loop 101 on the east side of Hayden Road. As you can see, the applicant's request this evening is within those yellow portions. However, to the east includes the overall Axon site, which is a triangular portion on the south side of the Loop 101. The applicant's request from a general plan standpoint is from the existing employment light industrial office land use designation for 43 acres of the site. to the mixed-use neighborhoods land use designation from a general plan standpoint, and that's commensurate with the applicant's request to include residential, retail, and hotel use on this portion of the site. Further, the applicant is requesting a minor amendment to the Greater Air Park Character Area Plan from employment, or EMP, to Air Park Mixed Use Residential, or AMUR, again, commensurate with that request for residential, retail, and hotel use. In terms of the 2035 general plan, we have amendment criteria that we look at for any land use request from a general plan standpoint. In terms of the applicant's request to amend 43 acres from employment to mixed-use neighborhoods, that exceeds the 15-acre threshold for criteria 2, or the area of change criteria. And this would outline a process for the applicant typically. So in this case, typically this would be a major amendment from the general plan standpoint. However, the applicant is requesting, and it is more thoroughly defined in their narrative, to be processed under criteria 8, the exceptions to the general plan amendment criteria, in that they are within the regional use overlay of the Greater Air Park area. And regional uses, as defined by the general plan, are determined as already planned land uses for this area of the community and will be processed as a minor amendment. The regional use overlay definition is outlined and defined within the 2035 general plan, and it's clear that a regional use provides flexibility for land uses that serve a regional market. These uses include, but are not limited to, corporate office, regional serving retail, major medical, educational campus, community service facilities, tourism, and destination attractions. Most of those uses would be within the overall Axon campus that would be part of this overall request. In determining whether proposed land uses are regional in nature, the city will consider various factors, including regional draw, fulfilling economic development policies that were discussed by Terry, good freeway access, as well as complementing the established character for the area. And I'll get to those factors on the next slide. But again, I'll remind the Commission that regional uses within this regional use overlay are determined as already planned land uses for this area and will be processed as a minor amendment, as is the case this evening. Those regional use factors that I discussed on the previous slide, the applicant checks most of those boxes, and they're outlined here and are outlined in the applicant's narrative. So in terms of regional draw and enhancing the employment core, the applicant is stating that the integration of supporting uses such as residential, retail, and hotel will enhance Axon's presence as a world headquarters, consolidating their valley-wide operations into a single Scottsdale location. The applicant has intimated to us that they've outgrown their current site, and instead of having silo locations throughout the valley, they would rather have one specific singular Scottsdale location. And I'll remind the Commission that Axon is the 3rd largest employer in the Greater Air Park, 8th within Scottsdale, and the applicant has projected that over 1,500 employees would be located at this location at build-out. In terms of economic development policies, Scottsdale's Economic Development 5-year strategic plan promotes growing existing industries, attracting new investment, and building talent. That new investment would show itself with the residential, retail, and hotel uses, building talent by allowing future employees to also be residents on the site, and allow for conferences and public safety training events to all be housed on site. The applicant's site has freeway access as per those factors, and further, the established character of the area includes an approved development plan of Crossroads East, which is inclusive of several other regional employers. In terms of regional employers and employers in and of themselves within the Greater Air Park, staff pulled information from the U.S. Census in terms of employment inflow, outflow, which shows where employees are residing, if they're within the area of the context area or if they come from outside of that area. In terms of the Greater Air Park, there are just over 56,000 total employees today. 99% of those come into the air park every day to work. Only 1% of those live and work within the Greater Air Park. So expanding those residential uses within this area will not only help Axon in terms of the live, work, lifestyle that their employees may want in the future, but also other regional employers within the area will be able to locate their employees there as well. In terms of those general plan amendment exceptions, exception 8 that the applicant is requesting, I'd like to remind the commission that the general plan is a legally amendable document as per state statutes, and that this criteria should be applied consistently. And the criteria is meant to be utilized to provide flexibility to address unique cases such as this Axon case to align with Scottsdale's vision, values, and goals. To that end, 18 exceptions have been requested via these amendment exceptions since the 2001 general plan was in case and through the 2035 general plan, which has been voter ratified. So with those 18 exceptions shown on the right-hand side of the screen, all of which have been in the past approved by City Council, except for one that was withdrawn, and the other is the one this evening, which is actually an active case. So with that, I'll hand it over to Greg Bloomberg. Thank you.
Good evening, Vice Chair Young and Commissioners. Greg Bloomberg, Principal Planner, here to do the zoning portion, land use and zoning portion of the presentation. So as you can see from this graphic here, the current zoning on this portion of the property is I-1 PCD, which is what the Axon location is also zoned. If this application is successful, the zoning will change to Planned Community District, Planned Air Park Core, Air Park Mixed Use Residential. That's what all those acronyms stand for. So I'll give you some background and a summary of the request. These current cases were submitted originally on August 8th of 2023, and today is the first hearing since that submittal, so it's been in process for approximately 15 months. Lots of discussions, meetings, and coordination during that time. As Taylor mentioned, there's two requests related to the general plan. Minor amendment to the general plan 2035 to change the land use designation from employment to mixed use neighborhoods. And another minor amendment to the greater Air Park character area plan from employment to Air Park mixed use residential. I just mentioned the rezone. And one of the primary reasons that the amendments are needed for this project are to allow the residential and retail in this area, because right now it's designated as employment, which does not allow residential. Just as an informational piece, based on the number of units that they're proposing for the PCP portion of the site, the residential density calculates out to about 44 dwelling units per acre for 1,965 units. In 2020, the applicant received approval for a maximum height of 82 feet for the Axon building. That, of course, is not changing. That site's already entitled. And then 52 feet for all the others at that time, because the entire site was I-1. And those measurements are exclusive of rooftop appurtenances. The proposed maximum height for this portion of the site, again, not including the Axon headquarters, is 68 feet, exclusive of rooftop appurtenances. And we do have quite a bit of public comment in support and opposition for this project. So the Planned Community District allows applicants to amend development standards for the PC comparable zoning districts. In this case, the comparable zoning district is the PCP district. Two amendments are proposed. One is to the maximum percentage of ground floor that can be devoted to residential floor area. The PCP currently limits that to 50%. The applicant would like to increase that to 58%. And then building height in the PCP district is, the maximum height is inclusive of rooftop appurtenances. They want to make that exclusive, which is consistent with their previous entitlement for the I-1. and no bonus development standards are proposed. So since the initial proposal came in 15 months ago, there's been several changes that I'll go through as quickly as I can. The number of units has been reduced from 2,552 to 1,965, which is a 23% reduction. Of those, 365 are earmarked to be condominiums, fee title. The rest would be apartments, so that's 1,600 apartments as opposed to the original 2,552. Axon Way is proposed to be realigned away from the neighborhood to the south, and I'll get into that a little bit when I get to the site plan. And the existing Mayo Union Hills Road that runs along the north portion, or abuts the north portion of the Stonebrook community, is proposed to be preserved. It was originally proposed to be abandoned. It would be preserved and improved to provide access to Hayden Road for the subdivision to the south. And also, it'll be used for access to the fire station, which is currently under construction. The southernmost building on the site plan was originally proposed at 68 feet in height. The applicant has proposed to reduce that southernmost building to 47 feet for most of it, and stepping down to 40 feet where it's closest to the community. The southernmost building, they are maintaining a 300-foot setback from the south property line to the southernmost building. The hotel was relocated to the northeast corner of the far northeast corner of the site. And there's enhanced connectivity between the Axon building and the mixed-use buildings, strengthening the campus concept, which was rather important. Okay, so this is the original site plan that was proposed, and I want to draw your attention to Axon Way. Right now, this is the alignment for Axon Way. It stoops, there's a roundabout in the middle of the project, and it comes south and curves its way over to the existing Mayo Boulevard, and which eventually dead ends here. And there were 3 roundabouts proposed at that time. And the connectivity between the Axon headquarters and the rest of the site was not terribly strong, so there was some concern that the campus idea was not really being met. So we've had plenty of discussions with the applicant about that. And this roundabout here at 82nd Street was a major concern for the neighbors to the south from a traffic perspective. So fast forward to today, this is the current site plan. So you can see that Axon Way now just goes straight and dips down, avoiding 82nd Street. The roundabout has been eliminated here, so 82nd Street essentially would dead end at this location and continue west. This is that access point I was talking about for the fire station, and the only roundabout would be at Perimeter Drive. And I'll get you a detail here in just a second, but this here was suggested by the applicant. It is an enhanced connection between the Axon building and the PCP portion of the site, which is probably a rather significant feature, just to really stress that this is supposed to be a campus, not just a commercial building with a lot of apartments. So here's a detail of that crossing. There would be opportunities for gatherings. There would be opportunities for food trucks, but it's just a really strong connection between the 2 projects that lends itself to that campus setting notion. And then I would just for this, on this graphic, I just wanted to clarify the building heights a little bit. The 40-foot portion of the southernmost building is located right here, and then the rest of the building is 47 feet. And then all the buildings along north of Axon Way would be a maximum of 68 feet or 5 stories. So in terms of our hearing history on this, the case did go before the Airport Advisory Commission on January 17th of this year. There was a recommendation of denial by a unanimous vote of 7-0, citing the number of proposed residential units and the incompatibility with airport operations. On January 24th, the Planning Commission did consider this case. It was ultimately continued to the 2/14/2024 hearing with a 6-1 vote to allow time for additional information to be compiled. Before the 2/14 hearing, the applicant requested an additional continuance to a date to be determined to allow for additional time to address issues and concerns raised at the 1/24 hearing. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. Unless there are immediate questions for me, I will turn it over to the applicant for their presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Bloomberg. Do we have any questions at this point, or are we? Sounds like we've got two questions. Go ahead, Commissioner Joyner, and then Commissioner Gonzalez.
Chairman Gregg, what is the status with the Airport Commission?
Vice Chair Young and Commissioner Joyner, the applicant received a recommendation for the number of, there was actually 1,975 units proposed at that time, and they've got their recommendation, which is the requirement, that they have to have a recommendation from the Airport Advisory Commission. They're going along with that recommendation. They've chosen not to go back to the Airport Advisory Commission, and they do not have to go back to the Airport Advisory Commission.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. That just segmented to my question. So the Airport Commission actually really didn't interfere with anything as far as height or any kind of problems as far as the airport restrictions involved. It was just merely that they were concerned a little bit about the density, and even that has changed since then when they made the recommendation.
Vice Chair Young, Commissioner Gonzalez, that's correct. It's changed slightly. It was originally 1,975 units. Now it's 1,965 units. And their biggest issue, as with anything close to the airport, is protecting the airport from residential uses. And so they were just concerned about all the residential units being in that airport influence area. Whether they're rental or fee title, it didn't really matter.
Okay, but they didn't bring up any other issues other than that particular item?
My recollection, that was pretty much it.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. I don't think we've got any other questions at this time, Mr. Bloomberg. So now, moving on, I believe we'd like to see the applicant give us your presentation, Mr. Welmenthal.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Charles Sealmantle. It's good to be here again. We've taken quite a bit of time to modify our plan since our last hearing before you. I'd like to start by asking for a little additional time. Not only is this a pretty large case, originally 77 acres, but we've also taken a lot of time to address a number of comments from the Commission and from others in the community. I think it makes sense for us to spend a little more time going over some of those things.
Sure.
Would that be acceptable?
About how much more time do you think you'll need?
I'd like 20 minutes total, so an additional 10 minutes, but we probably wouldn't use it all.
Is that agreeable to everybody? All right, well, let's set the clock for 20 minutes, and you're on.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce you in just a moment to Rick Smith, who's the founder and CEO of Axon. He's going to lead the first part of the presentation, and we're going to field questions together. Our goal is to really spend time talking about the goals for the campus and some of the changes that we've made over time. Mr. Smith?
Great, thank you. Quick logistic question. How do I advance my slides? Just on the keyboard? Or?
Yeah, just the keyboard, the arrow on the keyboard.
Sorry, just as a formality, could we get your name and address?
I'm sorry.
Just for the record.
Yeah, formalities trip me
Yep,
up,
sorry
as
that.
does my wardrobe. My name is Rick Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Axon.
Thank you.
And Scottsdale resident.
And a Scottsdale resident, yeah, a long time. Went to Chaparral. So, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be back in front of you. Great to see many faces I know and some of my new neighbors I'm just meeting for the first time tonight. Really excited to show you what we've been working on. And with that, let's roll into this. Okay, so many of you know us. We started out with the taser. I had two high school friends who were shot and killed not very far from here, and I became fascinated with gun violence as a technology problem. If we had Captain Kirk's phaser, we wouldn't shoot people with bullets anymore. And that was the simple premise we started with. As we rolled out the taser, it was not without controversy, and there were questions and concerns about our police. What are they doing with these? Are they abusing people? And that's a hard question. You can't just answer it in the abstract, and that's why we created body cameras, so we could record what police were doing and protect good cops and protect the public from bad cops. From there, we got into the cloud software business. I knew nothing about software when we got started, but now today we run a software service that has more video content than YouTube and Netflix combined, because we store millions of cameras worth of video every day. We added in-car cameras. We acquired a drone company. We own the leading tactical drone company. We partner with the leading US outdoor drone company. We're the largest customer of HTC, which is one of the world leaders in virtual reality, helping to train police better in VR. We acquired a company called Fusus that connects the community's cameras to the police, so if there's a critical incident, police can see what's happening in a school if something terrible is happening immediately. And then we also acquired the world leader in counter-drone technology. So we have hundreds of sensors across Ukraine, where obviously drones are one of the biggest threats in the world right now. We protect the NFL stadiums, et cetera. So it's really been a pretty wild ride from a garage in Tucson to now, as of today, we have a $45 billion market cap, and we're excited and proud to be headquartered here, a hometown story. The big change for the next 10 years is subtle one here. We're now adding artificial intelligence on top of everything we're doing. And boy, what an exciting time to be alive. The changes in AI, we can now write a police officer's report for them in seconds and literally save 25% of a police officer's duty day that they can go out and do police work. And that's just one of many that we're rolling out. So that brings me to our campus. So the purpose of this campus is really to prepare us for the next phase of the company. We're now in this wonderful position. We are trading talent with Amazon and Microsoft and Google and the best tech companies in the world. And years ago, we had to open an office in Seattle because people told us tech talent wouldn't come to Arizona. And that was like kind of like a knife in my chest to hear that. What do you mean? Like, Arizona is a fantastic place. And what we're competing with are cities like Seattle, but a really good example for us is Austin, Texas. And so we've been studying, like, how did Austin go from just sort of a regular city to a tech hub? And a big part of this was the rise of these mixed-use campuses. There are two really big ones that were pretty transformative, the Domain and Mueller. And these were campuses that together brought in Silicon Valley companies. Apple has a huge headquarters there. You can go down the list. Cisco, Oracle, Tesla, has now moved their headquarters to Texas. And so as we really looked at this, and when we think about our recruiting, we need to have a diverse recruiting funnel. But really the most important part of our funnel is people at the beginning of their career. Josh Isner, put your hand up in the front row. We hired that kid right out of college in 2008. He's now the president of the company, running the company. And we find, if you get people early in their career, they can grow with you, and that's how great companies are built. And by the way, we're really proud of the jobs we've been creating. Online, you can look it up. The average job in Arizona pays $53,000 a year. Our average target pay in Arizona is $135,000. But we pay a lot of it in stock, and our stock's been doing pretty well, so people are actually taking home quite a bit more. But if you compare that to our Seattle, Washington jobs, there our average salary, our average target pay is $306,000. So one thing for everybody, if you have young people in your life that are going to school, tell them to take that computer coding class. It is very real that these tech jobs are the best paying and they're in extremely high demand. And that's what we're going to bring here. And we think this campus can be the cornerstone, not just for Axon, but for a thriving tech community. We had one of our young men, a little younger than Josh, who left the company. He's now running a near billion-dollar financial tech startup, but he went back to Seattle. We want to keep those people in Arizona. We also want to bring a lot of visitors. We're building an event center. We project we'll bring at least 20,000 visitors a year, and this will be the safest campus on earth because we'll be bringing folks like the major city chiefs of police, the major county sheriffs, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement and Women in Law Enforcement. We want to become the epicenter of public safety globally and host it here. Now, on our campus itself, the main feature is really a promenade. This is when we talk about recruiting those kids in the 20 to 35 age range, they're not ready to settle down and buy a house yet, right? They're going into their first job. Many of them are very environmentally focused. They don't want to have to get in their car and drive to work every day. And so really having a live, work, play lifestyle, I mean, these are why our competitors at Google and Oracle and others are doing this. And so what we want to build is really a wonderful campus that we hope everybody who's our neighbors will enjoy. A place where you can, not only take your dog for a walk around the corner, but go get a great coffee or a sit-down dinner. And so the idea is to have 2 hotels. We'd like to have 7 restaurants, enough variety. There's a certain critical mass to keep these communities thriving. All right, so this is a look, one of the satellite images of the site. And so there's Stonebrook. Here's our site up top. And, over the last 9 months or so, we've been collecting feedback. And the main thing we heard was a lot of concern that, like, hey, what is this going to do, moving this many people in here? And the concern was much of it about, already there's a concern about industrial traffic that goes down the street by the neighborhood into places like this is how you'd get to Axon today from Hayden. And what's going to happen if we start really amplifying that traffic? And that's where I'm really proud of the work that we've done with our architects and others to say, okay, rather than argue about that problem, is there a solution? And so what we've done is basically, not only are we going to eliminate our corporate traffic, industrial traffic, but let's actually cut off the existing traffic. And so we're proposing this berm and extensive landscaping so that we'd keep the residential streets residential. And the industrial traffic would go over on the new Axon Way, really sort of sheltered and secured from the neighborhood. Now, as an alternative, this is what the site is currently zoned for. If we were to build an industrial warehouse site or sell it to someone who would, industrialists operate on very thin margins. We can afford to do this because we need this place to be fantastic, a place where people who could afford to live anywhere do want to come live here. So we're going to invest in that infrastructure and with that experience. But this site, the natural thing to do would be to use the existing city streets, and that would be exactly the problem I think everybody was worried about. We've also really tried to extend the setbacks. I understand these are some of the largest setbacks of their type in Scottsdale. So we measured it in football fields, 1.3 football fields to the closest building, 2.5 over to our headquarters. So we've increased the setback. We've moved the hotel as well. We heard that the hotel, the neighbors would prefer not to have hotel traffic there, and it made sense for it to be closer to our building. We've shifted from just apartments to adding condominiums. We've reduced the building heights, particularly that are closest to the neighborhood. There was a concern about sound, and so we had a sound engineer, I believe, do the analysis that this actually acts as a big sound barrier between the freeway and the neighborhood, so it'll actually reduce the sound energy by about 50%. And then we've had a walking trail you can see around the campus and a dog park. I think I should also mention here there was some question about with the state land department. This is also a winning proposal for them. We've negotiated with the state, so they will also get additional funding if this is approved. Now, oh, yes, and phasing. We've also had a proposal, I think Charles will give more detail, where we'd phase in some of these units at the time of the, oh, wait a minute, I've got on my phone, hold on, I can get that in the record for us. Just take a moment to open my photos so I get the exact numbers right. And so the idea on the phasing would be 231 units plus the hotel when we pull permits on headquarters, 365 condominiums plus 262 units, no sooner than 2027, 390 units in 2028, 717 in 2029. So one thing, some people have asked me, well, Rick, why don't you guys wait and do this later, or why do you need this? And I'll quote my CFO, I don't think she's here, my chief financial officer, who said, well, once we do this, if this doesn't work, why don't we build a building we could resell? There's not a big market for these science fiction-inspired designs. So once we're here for the next 50 years. This is what they call a one-way door, and so we really need to make sure we've set this up for success to be able to have the community grow with us. All right. I built this in VR, by the way. Any of the neighbors that would like to come and actually see how this design would feel from your neighborhood, I can put you in virtual reality and you can take a look around. It's a pretty great way to be able to experience things. So it's an open invitation. So this is standing on the corner, and what you're seeing here is that berm area, and we've got traffic on the other side. And our proposal would be, we'll actually raise the berm up. We're very open to input. I personally think we should block it so you don't see any headlights, and we'll landscape it. I'm a fan of the Chilean mesquite trees they have in my neighborhood. We'd like to bring mature mesquites in to create a shield, and what you're seeing here is you don't even see the condominiums. You would see a beautifully landscaped street, and then preserve the view corridor to the right towards the mountains. And again, by what is currently zoned for, could be built a lot closer and without a lot of these sort of privacy-preserving upgrades. There was a little talk about this solar shade. Really excited about this as something that connects, from our headquarters over to the campus. Again, this is just a shot of the promenade. The vibe we're trying to achieve here is think a little bit like Scottsdale corridor, but easily accessible from both the housing units. Again, we're trying to make it so the neighbors won't know we're there when they don't want to know, but a couple 100-meter walk and you're in great restaurants. Again, the alternative is something I don't think anybody would ever walk to go visit. Industrial sites are by their nature industrial. So quick summary of the findings from this third-party analysis: $38 billion of economic impact over the next 10 years, approaching 20,000 jobs, around $13 billion of labor income, $2.3 billion in tax revenues over the 10-year period. And if I go, this is a bit of an eye chart, the thing that matters at the bottom here, our current economic impact, I believe this is over the next 10 years, is to the city is, it's annual, I'm sorry, annual impact, 21 million versus 87 million with the new plan. And so with that, I actually don't get nervous normally when I present, but I am tonight. This is a big moment for us. We intend to bring thousands of high-paying jobs here to Scottsdale, create a vibrant community with new local business opportunities, this walkable lifestyle campus. We believe that if between a quarter and half of the residents live and work at Axon, that's 500 to 1,000 less cars that are on the streets during peak traffic hours. And I actually went and calculated myself today, looking this up, that could be up to 7,500 metric tons of CO2 that's not emitted because people are walking instead of driving to work. So we think that offers a really enhanced quality of life for our employees, for our new residents, and I believe for our neighbors too. We want to make this something that you'll enjoy when we're there for the long haul. And we think this can anchor long-term economic growth. It's actually in our interest to lure more of these tech jobs to Arizona because a rising tide raises all ships, and as Scottsdale's reputation rises similar to Austin, it makes it easier for all of us to bring those types of jobs and technology here. And so with that, my email is rick@axon.com. I'm always open to feedback, and again, any of the neighbors that want to come in and see, I've met with some of your neighbors just this week. We had a great session, and I'd love to show you what we're doing, and certainly open to feedback on landscaping and other ideas for how we can make this a win for everybody. And so with that, thank you for your time. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do next. Do I take questions? Or?
Well, you got about almost 6 minutes left.
We said we would try not to use the time, and
Okay.
for the most part, we haven't.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr.
Just a couple of things. I know there are a number of speakers that aren't going to have a chance to respond, so I think I would do most of the things then. Rick did mention a stipulation or a condition that we're prepared to offer. I thought I would read that into the record, if that seems appropriate now, Mr. Chairman.
Did you already give a copy of that to staff?
I did,
did.
and I can give you copies now and not read it in the record if that's acceptable.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
Then we'll do that, and we will certainly be present and prepared to respond after people speak.
there was a stipulation regarding the phasing that the applicant wanted to introduce into the report.
Okay, could we discuss that before?
You want to discuss that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want me to read it?
Sure,
No, could I speak now, or you want me to wait?
Yeah.
Okay,
feel free.
thank you. So you're going to pull the last permit in 2029?
Not before. We couldn't pull it before. That's right.
Right, not before. I'm just thinking, and this is just the way it strikes me. I mean, I'm thinking of the neighbors. You're going to be doing construction from now, for the next 5-6 years, because it's not going to get done necessarily in 2029. And I realize all the construction won't be right next door to the neighbors, but still, it's construction. Then I also think of your CFO, and you mentioned her. How does she like the idea of paying for the asset before you're doing anything with it? Does it need to be 2029? Can we at least shave a year off of that? I mean, I know you can't do everything in 2025. You can't do everything in 2025 and 26, but
You've asked a number of questions.
Sure.
Let me start by saying I've been in Scottsdale a long time, and I've even been to the museum a few times, and I don't know that there's been a time in the history of anyone that's alive in this room where there hasn't been a lot of construction in Scottsdale. It's sort of part of the growth of Scottsdale. We certainly would like to see that construction time go over a shorter period of time. Having said that, I think we're trying to find happy mediums in terms of how much growth happens, how quickly, and how quickly we move in different parts of the site. We'd be happier to do it faster, I suppose. We think it's a reasonable compromise to go more slowly as the road and other improvements come in. And so, we'll leave that to you. It's a stipulation that we offer. It's more stringent on us than what we would otherwise be required to do, and we're willing to do it. Would we rather do something faster? The answer is yes. But we're trying to find, just as moving the street was a sacrifice to us in many ways and separates a big part of the campus. But we heard it was an important thing to do, and so we found a way to do it. Lowering the buildings closest to the neighbors and separating them further were big sacrifices. It's not what we want to do, but we've tried to find reasonable ways to move forward that make sense to everyone, and that's what we did in this case.
does a year, I don't know how you came up with the timeline, but does it make sense to knock a year off of the pulling of the last permit?
For a company that is very based in science and particular measurements, this was not one of those. They're reasonable guesses, and sure, less time is better for us, but again, these are stipulations or timelines that we'd be willing to live with.
Okay, I guess I would like to see it shortened up a bit. I don't know exactly how to do. I mean, this is you could not pull a permit until January 1. I'm just looking at the numbers there. January 1, 2027, 28, so forth. So maybe knock a year. Does it make sense to knock a year off of each one of those?
Commissioner Rattel, just to be clear, it's a certificate of occupancy by January 1st of 2029. That would be usable.
Oh, so it'd be done by
So the goal would be that we could move forward with planning.
Okay.
And we could do some of the major infrastructure, and we would phase when the residential units come online.
Does it make sense to knock a year off of certificate of occupancy by a year? Is that?
Well, maybe we get into the deliberations of that.
Okay, yeah.
Details maybe after we get public comment.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So
I would like to make one comment, though.
Of course.
About the presentation. Very good presentation, very impressive, but this is the first time I've ever heard Austin referred to as a regular city. They post signs saying, keep Austin weird, so I don't think you can call it a regular city. But at any rate, a good presentation.
Keep in mind it's from a man in a yellow jacket.
Good point. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. We'll be back for rebuttal unless you have other questions.
Yeah, is there any other questions right now, or I think now's probably an appropriate time to move on to public comment. It looks like we have how many speakers? 14, 15? 15? Okay. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to call everybody in groups of 3, so if you can kind of get yourself organized and ready to speak. After the second speaker makes their comment, I'm going to call the next 3 speakers so they can line up. So we're hoping to kind of keep this moving along so we don't have a lot of delays with nothing going on. And I'm sure that everybody's, well, you probably all want to be here tonight. All right, so I'll call the first 3 speakers. We've got, and forgive me, DeLucia Lepore, and then Charles Moore, and then Isaiah Fields, who all appear to be here in the City Hall. So if you could come up and please state your name and address, and each of you has 3 minutes. Why don't we go in the order I've called you? That kind of help us keep track, because there is so many speakers, so thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm DeLucia Lepore. I live at 7426 East Stetson Drive, here in Scottsdale. And I'm all set, right? Was there anything else? That's perfect.
You're good.
So I moved to Scottsdale about a year and a half ago. It was a couple of weeks before I started work here at Axon, and it was just 2 months after I graduated college. I moved across the country. I was moving from North Carolina. It was a big deal for me. But when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be. The one thing I knew for sure was that I wanted to work for a company that spent its time day in and day out making the world a better, safer place. I wanted to work on systems that would actually make a difference. And I'm really thankful that I found Axon because they've allowed me to be able to do that on a daily basis. I didn't know anyone when I moved out here. I was entirely alone, but I did hear from a lot of my friends at home, a lot of my family members, that it was a wonderful place, and so that's what gave me the opportunity to take the leap, jump in, you know.
Ms. Lepore, can I just ask that you speak into the microphone?
Oh.
I think when you turn your head,
Apologies.
it's a little, we got folks watching this on TV, and if you turn away,
Absolutely.
we won't be able to hear you. Thank you.
So the funny thing is that to this day, my friends and family at home tell me how proud they are of me, which is wonderful but strange. And you don't really get that, especially from people you don't necessarily know. And especially because they didn't know necessarily how lonely it could be, especially in the beginning when you move to a new place. But now I realize that they were really proud of me because I was allowing myself to jump into a new community and a new culture, to separate myself from what was comfortable and what I knew was secure, and allow myself to fall in love with a city that is thousands of miles away from where I grew up. I really appreciate the opportunity that Scottsdale has given me to do that. I don't know that I would have done that if I didn't have the community built into place, which is this small cohort of the Leadership Development Program. When I started at Axon, and to this day, I know a lot of people who are early in their career who did not get the opportunity to experience that sense of community because they did not necessarily have that cohort right off of the bat. They did not know where to live right away, and because of that, I do believe they've missed out on the community that we've been able to build within the Leadership Development Program. As a New Yorker and as a recent college grad, I like to walk everywhere, and that's really hard in a lot of Arizona, better in Old Town. But I really value that. I want to walk to work so I don't have to drive. I want to walk to meet up with my friends, most of whom I met at work. And I want to walk to go pick up food when I can't cook, because I do love to cook. So this campus would just enrich my life more. It would make it a better community for me. And I do believe that this is not only what I want, but it is what my peers want. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Lepore. All right, Mr. Charles Moore.
Hey, Council. My name is Charlie Moore. I live at 4111 North Drinkwater Boulevard at the Palladium down the street. And good to go? Perfect. So, yeah, like I said, I live at the Palladium, and I moved to Scottsdale after actually reading Rick's book, The End of Killing, which demonstrated to me that Axon is a mission and purpose-driven company. The mission to protect life stood out to me as an incredible opportunity in a company I knew I wanted to work for. Since moving here, I've had an incredible experience and really fallen in love, truly, with the city of Scottsdale in the 5 months that I've lived here since then. The weather has been a great change after doing 4 years of cold winters in Vermont, and everything about the lifestyle has been such a great change coming from San Francisco out here, and I've truly fallen in love with the city. Scottsdale is absolutely somewhere that I believe that I could remain for the long term. I see myself living here for a while, and when I look at this new development, the opportunity to work, to live, to relax, to build my own local communities, all in the same area, with the people I call friends who are my fellow LDP cohorts, it's an incredible opportunity when I see the opportunity to share the same spaces with those people and build a life in the same community. And down the line, when I think about where I want to live, where I want to work, having this campus is a great draw for me as I decide where I want to be long term. I think a lot of young professionals, my fellow LDPs, would agree with that. When people ask me how I ended up in Scottsdale, I always tell them immediately, I ended up here for my dream job. I saw it stood off the page, the mission to protect life was critical. Immediately I knew this was the place I wanted to work. I hope down the line, when people ask me why I decided to stay in Scottsdale, I can say that not only did I find my dream job, but I found my dream community. And that's what I believe that this development is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Isaiah Fields is up next. I just want to call the next 3 speakers after you. So that would be Jennifer Karstens, Susan McGarry, and Tamara Goulden.
Great.
So, Mr. Fields.
Vice Chair Young, members of the Commission, I want to thank you for your time. My name is Isaiah Fields. I'm the Chief Legal Officer at Axon. I moved to Scottsdale with my wife 20 years ago from Maine. We had a few $1,000s in a U-Haul. no jobs lined up. And over the past 20 years, I've had the privilege of building my family and my career in Scottsdale. I'm a resident of Wingate Ranch. My wife and I have 2 daughters. One is at Notre Dame Prep, the other is at, forgetting the school that my daughter goes to. Copper Ridge, I apologize. And my wife is a nurse practitioner who has a practice in North Scottsdale. And, you know, I joined Axon 14 years ago, and I started as sort of a baby lawyer, and I grew with the company and with Rick and with Josh Isner and a number of others. And over the years, found my way into the chief legal officer role. And it's been just the absolute privilege of my life to be part of such a mission-driven company. And it's been a dream to be part of such just a vibrant and incredible community. And one of the things I've come to appreciate after 14 years and with some of the success we've had is if I could just see just a quick show of hands of the colleagues that are here today from Axon, working with just incredible people. And the thing that I think is the biggest key to our success is attracting and retaining top talent. And I see this campus as critical to our ability to do that for all the reasons that you've heard today. And you know, the last thing I want to emphasize here is there's been a lot of focus on tech talent. I'd like to speak for legal talent. Our folks in the legal team, we've got lawyers and paralegals and compliance professionals, and we're not bad people in spite of what a lot of folks think. So it's not just tech talent. We've got finance professionals, legal professionals, skilled labor, engineers working on hardware, and so this is really the key to our next phase of growth, and we appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Next up, we have Miss Jennifer Carstens, and then Susan McGarry is after you. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, Council. My name is Jennifer Carstens. My address is 18245 North Pima, Scottsdale. I'm fortunate enough to live by the future campus and current HQ. I live right behind that AJ's where we all know and love and rely on their iced teas in the summer. I joined Axon in 2022 after a health scare led me reevaluating what am I doing with my life. And if me working as a lawyer in private practice was truly serving this world and making it a better place. Or if all I was doing was billing by the 6-minute increment, I realized it wasn't. I wasn't fulfilled. So I left my boutique Scottsdale law firm. I was lucky enough to join Axon shortly after. Currently, I'm joined Isaiah Fields on the law team, where we oversee procurement, the buy side of the business. I couldn't be more thankful to be a part of this company and to serve our mission and what we do. I'm even more proud to call this company that has reached almost every corner of the globe that they choose to call Scottsdale, Arizona, its home. At Axon, we protect lives. That's our mission, full stop. Arizona is home to incredible companies, but I challenge you to think of a company in Arizona or in the US that stands for something as important as that, protecting life. At Axon, joining forces is one of our pillars. By us calling the city of Scottsdale home, that city is part of that mission. The city is also home to several Axon employees, myself included. These are mothers, these are fathers, brothers, sisters, friends, all valued members of the Scottsdale community. A vote for the new campus means that Axon can continue to join forces with the city of Scottsdale, and we can continue to be a part of our mission to save lives and make the world a better place. With that, I'll yield the rest of my time.
Great, thank you, Ms. Carstens. Miss Susan McGarry is up next. And it looks like you had 1 minute donated to you, so you have 4 minutes.
Let's see if I can fill those.
All right.
My name is Susan McGarry. I live at 8074 East Teresa Drive in Scottsdale, 85255. I'm also very nervous. You might remember this from last time. So I have no fancy presentation, just going to use this Elmo thing, hopefully correctly. I am the board president for the Scottsdale Stonebrook HOA. Did I do that right? No, they're fine. Okay. So we are the neighborhood that Axon talks about where single-family homes. The neighborhood was built not quite 30 years ago, maybe 28, 27 years ago. And when it was built, there was absolutely nothing else around us. So that part of North Scottsdale has grown up around us, and we haven't protested about anything until now. But I do want to make it clear we have 1- and 2-story, fairly small homes. We face a very highly dense development here. And our main objective is to protect our home values, obviously, like yours would be as well. Our issues are not with Axon, and they never have been. We need to make that clear over and over again. Our issue is the density of the project. With the resubmittal by Axon, the resubmittal adequately addresses many of our concerns, such as the roads have been realigned, so they're not going to impact us as much as the first plan. The roundabout's gone, which was going to impede a specific neighbor's home. Setback distances, as we understand, have been increased. Landscaping's been upgraded to help improve our privacy, which is another one of our big concerns. Of course, that goes right along with home values. The heights of the building or buildings closest to us have been reduced. However, we would like to see them decreased even further to enhance our privacy and limit our visibility of the development. It's important to remember that after the stories are accounted for, and a story can be 15 feet, not like 10 like they used to be, on top of a building is the mechanical penthouse, and that can be another story high. So while I know this proposal asks for the mechanical on top of the roofs to be eliminated or not counted in the feet high of the buildings, I think it's real important next to the neighborhood that be considered. This is what happened to us a couple of years ago. We've shown this picture before. This development is a Mark Taylor apartment complex west of us across Hayden Road. This is our little neighborhood right here. And you can see the 3-story Mark Taylor development looms over those backyards of those homes on that side of our neighborhood. There is no doubt that that affects their property values, and that's exactly what we're trying to avoid happening again. So now I got this all out of order. Hang on a minute. We also we're concerned with claims that the density that Axon is proposing is similar to some other density or less than in the area. And we've been unable to identify any projects that fit that bill. What we find are smaller, less dense projects. In particular, again, the San Artis, even though it's too tall for us, it is roughly the same footprint as our neighborhood in acreage and Axon. This is net acreage. But the San Artis apartments, even though they look dense, have about 1/4 the number of apartments that Axon is proposing on the same size of land.
Ms. McGarry?
Yeah.
It looks like we've run through the 4 minutes, but
Oh.
I'll let you wrap it up here if
Okay.
you can.
I'll get to my
Appreciate it. Thank you.
summary page. Sorry. In any case, we do appreciate the revisions in the plan that consider our concerns. They didn't make it easy, but they did finally listen. And we ask moving forward that Axon and the city protect our property values, preserve our community by limiting building heights, and further evaluate traffic impacts especially on Hayden Road and Princess Road. Thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Tamara Goulden is up next, but I'm going to read the next three speakers after Ms. Goulden. It's going to be Mr. Jacob Wirtz, Mr. Harry Markley, and Leslie Lerman. Ms. Goulden?
Hi, thank you. My name is,
If you could step up to the mic. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
the monitor was going to block me. My name is Tamara Golden. I'm a homeowner at 8077 East Teresa, 85255. And I don't really have any comments, more of questions that haven't been addressed in this meeting and the others. So I'll be really, and I don't expect answers, and I'm happy to forward these to Rick at a later time, because you're not prepared maybe. I don't know. The first question is, why exactly should the Planning Commission look the other way on established zoning regulations for this project? What justifies making an exemption here, especially when it directly impacts an established neighborhood and its residents? Second question, if an Axon employee resides in one of your apartments on your proposed campus and later faces eviction, do you see yourself primarily as their employer or as their landlord? How does Axon plan to navigate the potential conflicts between these two dual roles? Third question, has Axon released a detailed business plan to the Community and Planning Commission? If not, could you share what specific data supports the need for this expansion? Number 4, can you clarify whether this project is primarily an expansion of Axon's security technology business, or if Axon is now diversifying into real estate and commercial development? What will be the focus of the campus? In the YouTube video that you posted for our neighborhood, there wasn't any mention of how this expansion will affect our neighborhood, especially during high traffic events like the Waste Management Open. Could you elaborate on traffic crowd control and security plans? Will the proposed parking be adequate to prevent overflow into our neighborhood? Last year, we had a lot of riffraff parking in our neighborhood and cars were towed. Has Axon conducted a study on how this campus might impact parking and foot traffic in the nearby residential areas? What assessments have been done regarding local infrastructure, including roads, utilities, emergency services, to ensure that they can support this type of development without overburdening the current system? And the last question, with most police departments already equipped with Axon's core products like body-worn cameras and tasers, what new product line or services is Axon developing that would require this additional space? Which I think you actually addressed that question, but those are my only questions, and I'm happy to forward those on if needed.
Great, thank you. I think after all the public comment, the applicant can respond to those questions. All right, thank you, Ms. Goulden. Mr. Jacob Wirtz, you've got 3 minutes.
How's it going? Jacob Wirtz, 4215 North Drinkwater Boulevard. As a recent transplant from New Jersey, I chose to make Scottsdale my new home because I have Axon and the positive energy this company brings to the area. Axon's commitment to innovation, community, and public safety is truly inspiring. And I believe that their presence has already contributed immensely to the local economy and unique, vibrant culture of Scottsdale. I wholeheartedly support the construction of their new campus, as I know it would only strengthen Scottsdale's appeal as the hub for cutting-edge technology and skilled talent. Not only does Axon attract high-caliber professionals, but they also create job opportunities that benefit local residents and generate additional support for local businesses. Additionally, Axon's focus on community engagement is unparalleled. Their work extends beyond corporate goals, impacting real lives and communities through safer and smarter public safety solutions. With a new campus, Axon will be better equipped to expand their efforts, engage with the Scottsdale community on an even deeper level, and continue to contribute positively to our city's growth and reputation. One thought I wanted to bring up was Delucia's point of walking. It's going to be a little bragging session for 2 seconds. But as being in Scottsdale, since this March, I started walking, and I found that I lost 85 pounds doing that. And bringing up this new campus of walking sounds pretty important to me. I don't know about other people, but walking is going to be a really important thing, and having this new campus is going to be instrumental. But I digress. I saw as a young professional that trying to go out of my comfort zone and join a company who is super inclusive in creating a family for the community was shown to be the best option for me. As someone who took a leap and relocated here, I see Axon as a vital part of Scottsdale's future, and I strongly support this campus's project. I believe this will create an ease and for new coworkers who are trying to leave their nest and be part of something new and different. I'm excited to watch Scottsdale's community continue to grow and flourish with Axon as a foundational part of the community. Thank you for your time, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Wertz. Mr. Harry Markley.
Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Harry Markley. Sorry, it's a little short on Iris. My name is Harry Markley. I live at 6900 East Wildcat Drive. I am a Scottsdale resident. I'm one of those few people that has been in Arizona almost my entire life. Raised in Phoenix. I got to Scottsdale as fast as I could. I've been here for over 15 years. I am a retired assistant chief from the Phoenix Police Department. And after that, I was the law enforcement senior advisor for the Department of Commerce, the FirstNet Authority. One of our partners in both my previous jobs, City of Phoenix and for the FirstNet Authority, Department of Commerce, was Axon, a valued partner. I can only tell you that I'm sure the City of Scottsdale is facing some of the same challenges the City of Phoenix is. We have hundreds of vacancies in our police department, hundreds. And I think one of the great equalizers for our officers that are on the street is technology. The ability to use body cameras, the ability to use less lethal items, the ability to use report writing things that make our jobs more efficient. The partnership with Axon and law enforcement has just been incredible. City of Phoenix was the first major city to do a full deployment of the TASER back in the early 90s, I believe it was. And I was a part of that rollout for the City of Phoenix, so I know the value of the partnership that they have with law enforcement. I can tell you that this campus, wish it was in Phoenix, it's not, but I live in Scottsdale now. But I can tell you that the value that it brings to public safety is tremendous. I think the ability for this company to continue to grow and to innovate only brings more safety and more accountability, also important for law enforcement in the future. So thank you very much.
Next up, we have Ms. Leslie Lerman. Thank you. Oh, yeah. The next three speakers are going to be Kendall Coraggio, Nick Van Hyft, and Will Serra. So if you could get ready, you'll be next up after Ms. Lerman. Go ahead.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. My name is Leslie Lerman, and sorry about the mask, but I haven't caught COVID yet and trying not to. We have been homeowners in Stonebrook 2 for 22 years, although our daughter, who's a physician trained at Mayo, and her husband actually live there now. Before I share my concerns about this rezoning request, I want you to understand that I support Axon, its vision, and its growth. I also want to thank City Councilwomen Whitehead and Janik for negotiating improvements to Axon's original plan on behalf of the neighborhood. I also want to congratulate Rick and his entire team, including Eric Hertz, who talked in detail to us because we were sitting next to him, on the improvements to the plan and your vision. This is going to be a terrific project, but that does not change the fact that it is too dense for our neighborhood. So you've made great improvements to the plan, and I think that's going to help, but despite the concessions you've made, the density isn't appropriate for a place that includes 174 single-family residential homes. I don't think this many apartments are really necessary, particularly with the number of other apartments nearby that are coming online. So I'm asking if you couldn't substantially lower the number of units that you're planning for the site. I know I represent many of the Stonebrook 2 residents when I say that we want to see Axon build this high-quality campus and continue to succeed and grow. But I'm requesting they don't do as much damage to the neighborhood as this number of units would. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lerman. Next up is Kendall Caraggio.
Hello, I'm Kendall Caraggio. I am an employee at Axon, and I'm a current Scottsdale resident. I actually was born and raised in Scottsdale, and I absolutely love this city. I often joke a lot of people move here that I've met through college or through my job at Axon, and they always ask me, if you had to move somewhere else, where would you go? My answer has remained the same, which is I wouldn't. I want to live here. So seriously that when I went to apply to colleges, I actually only applied to ASU, and thank goodness I got in, but I did not want to leave Arizona. I wanted to stay here. And when it came time to apply to internships, I took a similar approach, and I applied to every company I could find in Scottsdale because I wanted to stay here. And that's how I found Axon. I started as an intern there, and then after graduating college, I moved into their leadership development program, which focuses on developing young talent. And from there, I've now been at the company for 5.5 years. And I do really feel like they have invested in me, and they have helped me grow and given me great opportunities here. So much so that last year, I actually was able to purchase my first home in Scottsdale, which again is the only place I've ever wanted to live. And I never thought I'd do this so young, and I'm very thankful to Axon that I've had that opportunity. And I would love to see Axon continue to give these opportunities to others, especially those in Scottsdale. As mentioned by many of my peers here as well, the Axon campus will be very beneficial to us. It will offer great new amenities and great new opportunities for us to continue to build our culture. Like we've mentioned, things being walkable, places that we can gather and connect outside of work will be a great help to us. But additionally, I think that this is going to be a huge win for Scottsdale as well. And I think it's only going to enhance the community and bring new opportunity to this city. Axon's mission is truly inspiring, and the work that we do really matters. And I would love to see Axon and the city of Scottsdale continue to grow together. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, your last name, Nick Van Hyft? Is that close?
It's Nick Van Hefty, but had you gotten it right, you would have been the first one in my entire life.
Very good.
Yeah. So thank you for the effort there, and thank you, commissioners and vice chair, for giving me some time here this evening. So my name is Nick Van Hefty. My wife, Meryl, and I live in Scottsdale, Stonebrook 2, and we have 2 daughters, a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old. We've been in the neighborhood since about 2019. We love it, and we'll likely never leave. We're very unique, though, in that my wife works for Axon. She's been there for 4 years, so there's probably nobody else in this room that's going to offer the same perspective that we can. And while we respect and appreciate the concerns of our neighbors, we are firmly in favor of the development as it's designed today. I think Rick and the Axon team would likely admit that communication and collaboration early on wasn't great, right? But as they say, it's not about the mistake that's made, it's about the reaction to it. And Axon's reaction has been incredible. They've listened to us. They've taken our feedback and worked it into the plans. They've given us an opportunity to come to the corporate office and see the new plans and how it would impact our neighborhood. They've built a beautiful campus that we can walk to. You know, Scottsdale is wonderful, but it's not the most walkable city in the world, right? So I look forward to being able to have an opportunity to take my children there for a cup of coffee, or my wife on a date, which is really tough with little ones. So I just want to share kind of some perspective that's unique. We love the neighborhood. We believe in Axon, the mission of the organization. It's a wonderful organization. And I would also say, while we do have some representation here from our HOA and we get their perspective, we're not the only folks in the neighborhood that are looking forward to this development. There are others that are just like us, that see Axon as a valuable neighbor and want them to be there long term. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Will Sarah is up next. The next three speakers after you will be Sonny Kirtley, Jordan Greenslade, and Gaia Sean.
Good evening. My name is Will Sarah. Thank you, Vice Chair and Commissioners, for allowing me to speak today. I'm a Scottsdale resident and one of the newest owners in the Scottsdale Stonebrook 2 community. I wanted to say that I'm an Army veteran, and I worked in Afghanistan for 7 years as a security contractor and actually used Axon equipment and devices. Thank you for that. But I know Axon is a great company. They do great things for the world, but I believe they will continue to do great things for the world without the rezoning. I've presented myself here to request that the Planning Commission deny the request for rezoning. I feel that the number of residential units is very high and will create a large density, population density issue in the area. The fact that Axon is referring to the addition of almost 2,000 residential units to their plan as a minor general plan amendment is, in my opinion, absurd. When I heard that, I almost zapped myself with one of Rick's tasers to see if I was dreaming. The single-family homeowners to the south are concerned with the density that the amendment would cause, and I humbly request that the Planning Commission deny the rezoning request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Sonny Kirtley, you're up.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Sonny Kirtley. I represent the COGS Board of Directors. COGS, Coalition of Greater Scottsdale. We're an all-volunteer 18-year-old group tracking and watchdogging land cases. Axon is certainly a welcome member in our community. We wish them all the success. You've already successful. We do support the concerns of the Airport Commission on their unanimous opposition to it. At that time, they were very concerned about the air traffic pathway over top of the residential. And we also continue to support the Stonebrook group as a neighborhood concern. We appreciate very much the attention that Axon has given to the requests. And we appreciate the change in the road, Axon Way. We appreciate the reduction in height, but the concern for the density of apartments is still there. The hotel sounds great. We hope that there's a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirtley. Jordan Greenslade is up next.
Hi, good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. So my name is Jordan Greenslade. I'm here representing Worker Power Institute, which is a nonpartisan nonprofit that focuses on making sure that developers and local governments are really responsive to community and residents' needs and inputs. So originally when this plan was proposed a couple plans ago, the hotel was only going to be about 100 rooms. Since then, the plan has grown to about over 400 rooms, and despite a lot of concerns by residents over the size overall of this project, it has continued to grow. While Axon has spoken a lot about how a hotel will benefit their goals, it's a little unclear of how this will benefit the residents that are going to be most impacted by the scope and size of this project. In addition, as a couple folks have already mentioned as well, the Aviation Advisory Commission voted 7-0 against this project. At the hearing, the commissioners raised concerns that the development could threaten the airport's long-term viability by placing thousands of residents within the flight path. Residents have named many concerns from the size of the project, traffic, water use, and I just ask that you listen to the concerns of the folks that are going to be most impacted by this project. The other thing that came up that we're also interested in is, you know, a lot of folks are aware of the controversy around the amount of money that was going to be go to the Arizona State Land Trust and the sale of public land. We've heard assurances from the applicant that taxpayers will be made whole with the increase in size of this project, and we're interested if that would be made public and there could be more transparency to make sure that taxpayers are being fairly compensated for the sale of precious public lands. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Looks like we've only got 3 more speakers total. Gaia Sean is up next. Then we have Lisa Kotler and then Alan Kotler.
Good evening, Vice Chair and Commissioners. My name is Gayatri Shanmuganatha, but I go by Gaia for convenience, and I live at 5607 East Tierra Buena Lane here in Scottsdale. I came to Arizona 11 years ago to study law at ASU, and I used to have the notion that I needed to get out of state if I wanted to be part of a community that supported innovation, growth, and plentiful opportunity. However, as I went through law school and got to know the spirit of the state and the city of Scottsdale, I learned that our leaders were focused on changing Arizona's image of being a sleepy and stagnant place to a place of lively culture, plentiful opportunity, and a robust future for its current and future residents. Time and time again, this community has supported innovative initiatives to retain high performers and attract new talent to the state. Innovation is rarely comfortable. It, by its definition, is novel and forces us to question whether we want to stay stagnant or hoe an exciting and bountiful road. A vote in favor of Axon's proposed campus is a vote to fulfill the promise this city and state has made to its students, young families, and residents, that this city is invested in cultivating a community that has plentiful opportunity, will vote for projects that will attract more jobs, resources, and innovation, and each resident's choice to come here and stay here will not be in vain. Thank you.
Thank you. We have two speakers left, Ms. Lisa Kotler and then Alan Kotler.
Thank you for letting me speak today. I've heard some comments, and so first I just want to say about Scottsdale being walkable, and it is walkable and it is rideable. I work for Honor Health, and I work right along the Greenbelt, and the Greenbelt goes all the way through Scottsdale from north of Westworld all the way down to South Scottsdale. In addition, we have the Scottsdale Trolley, which provides transportation all throughout that corridor. Scottsdale is also now in the process of becoming a blue zone, which is a project to help promote health and vitality and longevity. And so there are a lot of opportunities for walking in that arena. On the subject of Axon, I'm a Scottsdale Stonebrook 2 resident, have been living there for over 26 years. I'm here to voice my concerns over the proposed rezoning of the parcel of land on the southeast corner of Loop 101 and Hayden Road. First and foremost, this land was zoned for light industrial, strictly prohibiting residential development. The owners of the other three corners of this intersection have abided by these zoning laws. Why should this section be any different? Why would one business owner deserve special treatment? I'd like to put some perspective on this proposal and why the rezoning request should be denied. Number one, expansion and growth are positive aspects of any business and benefits not only businesses, but its customers and the community it serves. However, this proposed expansion, which includes residential, will not benefit the community, our community. Rick Smith and Axon propose a live, work, play community where his employees live walking distance away from their workplace. But what high-salaried employee would want to live in an apartment versus a luxury home? And for that matter, what lower-paid line employee earning minimum wage could afford Scottsdale rental prices? Living on a campus where you work is often referred to as a commune or a cult. I don't think that aligns with Scottsdale's vision, character, or lifestyle. Number two, let's put the population density in perspective. We already have land zoned for residential purposes, and land is being utilized, the example most notably being the Scottsdale Road corridor. Axon is proposing a 10-unit decrease, or 0.5% decrease in density of their apartment complex just north of the Scottsdale Stonebrook 2 community, a neighborhood of 170 single-family homes. There are already multiple apartment complexes in the area that are in compliance with zoning laws and height restrictions to preserve the scenic views of the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve. This proposed apartment complex is 4 stories high and will add 4,000 to 6,000 more residents, as most apartment complexes have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. This area simply cannot support the traffic nor the increased population density from their proposed residential community. This is the reason the Airport Commission unanimously opposed the rezoning request. I, as a resident of Scottsdale Stonebrook 2, am also strongly opposed to the rezoning request and urge you to vote against approving this request. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to voice my concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Kotler. Mr. Alan Kotler, you looks like you're our last speaker.
Alan Kotler, 8108 East Michelle Drive, Scottsdale. So I live in Stonebrook too, and my question again is the zoning. So if you change the zoning for Axon, what's going to happen the next developer comes in? They're going to want a changing of the zoning. And then the next developer comes in. They're going to come and want, hey, you did it for Axon, you can do it for us. Then what's the point of zoning? Why even have zoning? That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kotler. First of all, I want to say thank you for everybody that came to speak tonight in favor and in opposition of the case. I know it's not always the most comfortable thing to get up there and speak at the podium, but I appreciate, or we all appreciate your points of view. Mr. Helmenthal, would you like to respond to any of the questions or comments? Sure.
I would. I'll keep it fairly brief, as you may have more conversations with us as well. Is it possible to put our presentation back up? Perfect, thank you. As you sort of alluded to, I think one of the nice things about Scottsdale is everybody loves Scottsdale, and I think that that's true here as well. And I'm grateful that people have taken notice. I think staff did a great job at presenting the facts, so I'm not going to go over all of them. I think Greg pointed out in the beginning, we're already at 23% reduction in density. We've worked hard to create a new road system that, while causes us some angst, I think one of the things we've heard is it is appreciated by the neighbors, so I'm glad that we've done that. The awkward part about many of the questions before everyone is that Stonebrook, although it may be built as single family, it's multi-family zoning. And the land that we're talking about here today is in fact industrial zoning. And as we discussed earlier, it could easily become, in fact has the right to become, an industrial facility, which is most likely going to be a fulfillment center. We don't think that's the best use, and so we have worked hard to find a way to sort of work together to find a solution that would allow us to build here, that would allow us to recruit the best people in the world, and I'm really proud of the products we build. I'm even prouder of the people that work for Axon that come here and talk about what's important to them. We're biased, of course, and we think we build the best technology in the world, and hopefully a lot of people believe that, and I appreciate some of the folks from law enforcement who have said that person in writing. But we make the best technology in the world because we have the best people in the world, and in the end, it's that simple. And we have to continue to bring the best people, and this is a tool that we will use to bring the best people to Scottsdale so that we can continue to build the best technology, to continue to increase our offerings. And you know, the world of law enforcement always is a bit cat and mouse. We find out a solution, and the criminals tend to find a new way, and we continue to find new technology at Axon that makes law enforcement certainly safer and certainly more efficient. And that's our goal in the end. And we have a few things I want to cover briefly. However, the presentation seems stuck. There we go. Yeah, I want to make sure it's responding first. I think he's got the mouse from the control. Oz somewhere here is helping me. Thank you. I see there is no curtain, but it has the same practical effect. Briefly, I do want to say a few things here in terms of the street. I think that our goal was, and we heard about Mark Taylor, and you know, Mark Taylor's multifamily next to multifamily, although Hayden Road is in between. It is a much closer build. It's one of the reasons, it's one of the things that we heard, is that the three-story building, Mark Taylor, was too close, which is why we're significantly greater in distance from Mark Taylor, from the neighborhood. So the neighborhood association, I'm going to find, I think, if this continues to work, an exhibit that will show this. But the reason we're 400 and some feet, 420 feet from the neighbor's wall is because we heard that complaint. We heard that Mark Taylor was too close. And so we took the building that was a hotel and we made it condos. And we moved it far enough away that from a visual angle you wouldn't see it. From a site angle you wouldn't see it. And it's why it's much farther than Mark Taylor, which is also 3 stories. Our building is 3 stories and then 4 stories and doesn't get to 5 stories until you get across Axon Way. Wonder if Oz could help me. There we go.
Pass my email.
Oh, it's going to be all the way to the end. Okay, we had it there. I don't want to belabor the point. Here you can tell how close you could be if you were industrial, and I think that's a pretty big point, that if we're not able to build the campus, what comes is unfortunately a lot less desirable. We took that in mind and heard the comments about the street, about the building locations, about the building uses, and created something that was significant. I don't know that I have the actual exhibit that I was hoping for.
Yeah, go all the way to the end.
Well, why don't you talk about this? Yeah, you take this and I'll take the other after.
Yeah. So first, I'd like to say I really do appreciate all the kind words, not only from our employees, but from people that are exposing other views. So thank you. And also I appreciate that, the acknowledgement we've been listening. We're really trying to be good neighbors. Okay, on the question of home values, this came up last time around. And so I wanted to look at this. So we went out and we did a quick study on what happens when a tech campus comes to town. And so we started looking at Apple's headquarters in Cupertino, which was also a huge project. And the orange line shows you the property values in Cupertino close to Apple's headquarters. The red line is the control for the rest of California. And while California went up, there's a significant increase. And in fact, the closer you get to Apple's headquarters, the more pronounced the increase in home value is. And you're right, not everybody's going to want to live in apartments and condos. You met some of the people who do, like Jacob probably isn't ready to buy a house yet. But when those people do become ready to buy a house, boy, there's some really nice houses that are a nice walk from our campus, and I think there will be tremendous demand if you want to be able to walk to work and have a pool and a house. The same thing happened in Redmond, Washington when Microsoft came to town. Now, similarly, we also looked at what happens when industrial use, and in particular, the fastest growing industrial use case right now are distribution centers. So this is a study out of University of the South that found when fulfillment centers come in, property values actually get depressed. And it's pretty obvious because those super annoying backup beeping sounds that you can't turn off on an 18-wheeler all through the night, and pollution and other concerns. So I wanted to just take that one head on. I actually think your homes are a great investment, and we think we'll bring real value to it. Was this the other thing? You want to talk to this or me?
I'll talk to it. Thanks. Okay. Just wanted to make the point that one of the things the neighbors asked for was to be separated enough that they wouldn't see the condos. I understand why they don't like the Mark Taylor community, although that was certainly permitted under the zoning districts in place at the time and even today. We moved intentionally far enough away that you wouldn't see, based on not only the distance, but in our case, we've put significant rows of trees. There are trees behind the neighbors, there are trees between Axon and the residential units, and there are multiple rows of trees, as you can see through the landscape plan. This is one of the most heavily planted properties, I think, that you will see for some time. And that's another point. There's an awful lot of landscaping here, way more than required by code. And when people say, well, it's too much, I think you have to look at what's on the site. This is ultimately one of the very few actual mixed-use sites in Scottsdale. Started out as over 77 acres. A piece of that is streets. Those streets now, much to the neighbors' chagrin, go right against the neighborhood. We're moving those streets, but they're about the same. But this has real mixed use. It has a fire station. It has civic uses, the water facility. It has research and development. It has office use. It will have hotel use. It will have residential use. It will have commercial use. And all of those things fit in part because it's a 77-acre site. That's just a huge site. And so I think you can see from this piece that we've taken time to understand what they said, what the neighbors said, and really tried to address it. You've had long presentations from staff. You've given us extra time. If there are things specifically you'd like me to address, I'm happy to do it.
Thanks, Mr. Hallmantle. I guess I'd like to open it up to the commission now if you've got any questions or comments that you'd like to ask the applicant or staff.
Yes, thank you, sir. Just to clarify, this is a question for Joe, the attorney. I assume that you have, I'm sure that you've reviewed all of this application, and I can't believe that there's anything requested that is not something that's entitled by law. That, okay, the zoning request for a change, that's compliant with what's allowed by law. Is that true? I mean, there's no case where we have said, well, we're going to change this even though it doesn't comply with the law. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that would be fair to say. There has been determinations by city staff on, are you talking about whether this is a major, minor amendment? That's something.
Well, or just even
reviewed.
requesting a change. I mean, okay, it's not the original zoning, but it's my understanding that by law they are allowed to request a change to zoning.
Certainly, that they are allowed to request a change of zoning from one district to another, yes.
And they haven't gone outside of what's allowed by law.
I'm not aware of them.
Yeah, right.
Making an application that would be in violation of any state statute, city ordinance.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scarborough, you have questions?
Thank you, Vice Chair. For the applicant, if you could please expand on the comments given to us by, I'm going to mess this up because my handwriting is horrible, Jordan Greenslide. I apologize if I messed that up, but in terms of the state land trust, can you please provide some clarity on what Axon is doing in regards to that?
Sure. We have been working with the State Land Department and the city. I don't think it's a surprise to anyone. The city agenda for next week is, I believe, public and posted. And the agenda on Tuesday night before the council will include our case, but it will also include a modification of the state and the city's agreement. And we have agreed with the state that we would pay additional funds to the State Land Department to compensate them for the additional units that we're acquiring. And that will be before the city council, in fact, this Tuesday, next Tuesday, at the same time the council hears the case.
Okay. Could you also talk more about the traffic impacts this project has? I think we have a real clear understanding on how Mayo Boulevard is being addressed and how you're reducing the impact on the adjacent residents. But maybe you could please speak to how Axon Boulevard is going to be impacting traffic.
I can. Also, Dan, I don't know what your title is these days. You have several of them at the moment, but Dan is here as well, and I think it's probably best to have him talk about some of it. What I will tell you is that the city will be worse if we don't come in and build the improvements. But Dan, do you mind providing an answer and I can comment on it? By the way, the City of Scottsdale traffic staff and ADOT, we've met probably a dozen times or more since the last meeting to find solutions. We've tried very different routes. We came to a version that we thought protected the neighborhood as they'd asked, but also improved the rest of Scottsdale as well, which is not an easy task because in some cases, by helping the neighbors, you hurt everyone else. In other other cases, you hurt the neighbors by helping everyone else. And so we worked to find a street after looking at many versions collaboratively that really did both, that gave the neighbors the privacy in terms of a drive that they had been asking for, including moving the traffic further away from their neighborhood, which happened significantly, and not causing problems, but in fact improving traffic for the rest of the city.
Good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Dan Worth. I am the Public Works Director for the City of Scottsdale. Transportation Group falls into my department. As Charles just mentioned, we've been working on reviewing and improving their initial traffic impact mitigation analysis, their TEMA report, for some time now. I think we've gone through 4 comment and resubmittal cycles and are very close to having something that we're 100% comfortable with. But we're probably at 98 now, and there's a couple of places where what they propose works, but we want to figure out if maybe we can work better. And those 2 places are at Hayden and the 101, and Hayden and Axon Drive, the old Mayo. And those intersections both involve ADOT. Obviously, the freeway is ADOT's concern, and what happens at that freeway interchange can affect what happens at Hayden and Axon Way. So ADOT is a party to those discussions as well, which adds a little bit of time and complexity. That's why we haven't totally nailed that down, but we're confident that we can. What the analysis does looks at their external, their internal traffic impacts. Most of you are going to care about the external impacts. We looked at impacts at 7 different intersections on Hayden, Princess, and Perimeter, and at 2 freeway intersections. The one I mentioned at the Hayden Road and the 101, and then the other one that we looked at was the Pima Princess interchange. We looked at a future year. 2030 was the model year that we used. We had them build results, level of service analysis. Level of service is a measure of delay at intersections. We had them do that for the situation where they build their project and the situation where they don't build their project for means of comparison. But both of those situations involve taking existing current traffic, adding some traffic, almost an inflation factor because traffic increases regardless of what happens. So current traffic, add some traffic to account for increases, and then they added the effects of 5 additional developments, including their own phase 1, which is already approved, and the Optima development, which is under construction now to the west, as well as 3 other proposed developments in that Crossroads East area. So they're accounting for the traffic from all those other developments. The results of that study at the 7 intersections, all of them operate at acceptable levels of service, well within the city's standard for the level of service that we look at for our signalized intersections. At the 2 interchanges, first the Pima Princess interchange, there's delays at several of the approaches at the Pima Princess interchange, but the differences between the build and the no-build scenario are negligible. It's far enough away and lacks direct connections to the Axon proposed development that the development really doesn't do anything to the Pima Princess interchange. The Hayden interchange, there are impacts. But with the proposed mitigation, and again, we're looking at making this even better, but with the mitigation that the applicant proposed, we go from a future condition without the project being built, where we have an F level of service at the westbound ramps onto the freeway, which is not acceptable. And their mitigation reduces that to, or improves that to a D level of service. So the no build scenario, the build scenario, if they build their project, it'll be better. And that's because as part of their project, we're stipulating that they add capacity to Hayden Road between Axon Way and the freeway. We're stipulating that they make improvements to the interchange and to the intersection at Axon to get it to an acceptable level of service. And the improvements that they're proposing add left turn capacity, which is the big approach that causes problems which we feel will address that issue and give us a better situation than if we didn't get those improvements. So with that, I hope that wasn't too terribly confusing. I'd be happy
Not
to-
confusing, very informative. I appreciate it very much. I assume there's been no study done on this parcel. Should it be a fulfillment center? I assume that just hasn't been done, but could you anecdotally speak to whether the traffic would be worse or better or about the same as an Axon development here?
You're correct that there's been no analysis of that because we've not had that proposed, and the analysis is generally done by the applicant. I could make some very general observations about it, but obviously there'd be heavy truck traffic, but I really can't give you any details.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Humantle, Mr. Smith, could you please speak to the ownership approach for the condos, apartments, and restaurants as part of this campus?
Sure. We're early on in the process, and we'll have to come back for each stage. First of all, to be clear, each building that we want to do, whether it's the hotel or apartment building or the condos, we'll have to come back, not to you, but through the planning, the design review process for each of those things. And so there'll be a lot more finality that will come in. We will not have a commune, to make that point clear. We will partner with the appropriate people to build things that work for us and work for the community. So they won't be Axon branded. They won't be only Axon employees. That would not make sense. We want all of these things to be open to the public. For example, the hotel, when we have conferences, it's going to probably be all of our people. Probably won't be open for outside people in those dates. But that's not different than other hotels that block out things for conferences. When we don't have conferences, those hotel rooms will be available on the market just like everyone else. Again, for the first building of residential, and probably the second building, we're going to be focused on making sure that our employees have places. They're going to get priority. As we bring in restaurants, we're going to bring in restaurants that prioritize what works first for our employees and for the campus. They'll be open for others, and some of those things probably require some subsidy to make them successful. But that's an investment not only in the campus, but the people and the environment.
Thank you. You kind of led to my next question. I think I have the answer already, but I'd like you to explain it further. But can you walk me through all of the public accessible amenities that you're offering? It sounds like restaurants, people would have the right to come in and use these restaurants even if they're not a part of
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. In fact, we hope that that's the case. We hope we have outside people too. We have a number of things that we've designed specifically to amenities. For example, there's a 1.5 mile running track that goes around the campus. It didn't before. That's one of the things we heard. We have a dog park that will be open also for residents. In fact, we intentionally moved it away from the residents. I originally thought it might be nicer to have it closer, but Jim Smith, who's here and designs a lot of parks, reminded me that they may not want to be close to a dog park, so we moved that away, but it would also be open to the residents. The things that probably won't be open to the residents are our building, our headquarters building, and the hotel on certain occasions. But the restaurants, the shops, the walking paths, even the food trucks that will be under the area connecting the hotel and the office building, those things will all be open to the public.
Okay, I want to make that, you were saying residents and now public, so all Scottsdale residents or any general public would have access to these, the running track, the dog park, the restaurants?
That's right. Okay. Not just Stonebrook, anywhere in Scottsdale that we would expect people to come. I think Stonebrook probably makes the most sense because people will be able to walk over, and we've included a walking path to make it easier for them to do so. In many communities now, people see restaurants as an amenity, and I think that would be the case here as well.
Thank you. I like the idea that Mr. Smith proposed in terms of building a berm between Mayo and Axon to have additional buffering with some mesquite trees. I'll leave it to my learned colleague here who's a landscape architect if that's the right call, but that sounds reasonable to me. If you could, Mr. Humantle, can you please walk me through the two requests, the 50% max for residential on the first floor to 58%. Would you walk through that one? And then if you could follow that also with why you're now asking for an exclusive, a building height exclusive of rooftop appurtenances.
That's right. I'll try to take them both at the same time. The reduction is
really designed to figure out how, we've got a lot of, it's a pretty unique mixed-use concept. We have office, research and design, manufacturing, we have city uses, and we have residential uses. Part of the reason for the density and the need for the 7 restaurants, those things go together. If you don't have enough people, restaurants don't work, businesses don't survive without enough people. And so we've tried to figure out a couple of things. How to get critical mass, how to get walkable areas, and places where people would really congregate. And in the end, what we decided is the area, I'm pointing at the screen, that doesn't help you at all, but the area walking from Axon west through Building D, through the hotels, and then into the pedestrian area between buildings B and C. We've put a lot of our resources in terms of walkable areas there. In other areas, there isn't as much opportunity for residential. So we've tried to find this mix as to where we would want walkability and less residential on the ground floor, and places we would want more walkability on the ground floor. And specifically what we did was came up with a site plan. We figured out what that was, and then we amended the standards accordingly in discussions with Greg. The second question is height. I think part of the reason we have changed height over time and tried to work through that is this was not the site plan we came with originally. We moved the street significantly further to the north. In doing so, we really worked to do two things, to help height as it relates to the neighbors, and further, one of the things that was brought up earlier was the airport, and we worked with the airport, Gary Mascaro, the director, to lower the buildings that were closest to the airport and to move them further away. So that had a dual goal of helping neighbors and also helping the airport.
Great. If you could also sort of walk me through Building E. I apologize, I don't recall which citizen had mentioned it, but with the reduced height on a portion of Building E, it looks like the southern portion of that building would be at a lower level. Is that also?
Good.
Is that part of the building also looking for a building height exclusive of rooftop appurtenances, or is that building height along that southern portion of E a static height?
So the reduction, the height limitation is the height limitation, but in Building E, we have done two things. We've moved it to 4 stories along Axon Way, and then 3 stories in the southern portion. As I look at this today, you see a number 2 and a number 14 on the bottom. Mm-hmm. That portion is 3 stories. The building further north is 4 stories. And so I don't know if we've addressed that specifically in the application, but obviously we're going to want as little as possible on the rooftop of the 3-story, because the 4-story will see it.
100%. So if I'm understanding correctly, the southern half is 3-story. The northern half of Building E, south of Axon, is 4-story.
That's correct.
And once you go past Axon, then you step up again.
To 5 stories. Okay. That's right.
So you already have stepped down the buildings as it approaches the residential neighborhood.
Intentionally.
Okay. And then you talked about the airport area, the Airport Advisory Commission. We know they're standing. You obviously made some changes here to the site plan of where the residential buildings are, and the height of Building E is dropped, or at least the building height in that area has dropped. Now it's a different product, hotel or residential versus hotel. Has any of that been communicated to that advisory commission or the city, and has there been any further communication in regards to air traffic issues?
Yeah, my understanding, I had direct conversations with the airport director, and so he definitely knows about those things. Whether he communicated with the commission or not, I don't know. That would be beyond my purview. But I know the city has a consultant. I know we supplied information for the consultant, and the consultant thought that what we were doing was better than what we had done before. In other words, it was an improvement for the airport.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now. I'll yield to the other members. Sorry for taking so long.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? No, we're open for deliberation.
Yeah, right.
Questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the neighbors and to all the Axon employees that are here and to everybody that's listening online. To the gentleman that said, why do we have zoning? if we're going to change things that are in the zoning. And I've been involved in zoning and planning for over 20 years, and I bet I've seen 10 cases that were perfect. So every case is a tweak to get the best we can possibly get out of the developer and add value to the city. No one ever wants to have the land, the vacant land that's adjacent to their home developed. I know when my husband and I built our home, we had 3 acres of open, gorgeous desert, and we actually tried to buy it. We couldn't afford it, but it broke our heart when somebody built on it, but that's just the way it is. And one thing that the traffic gentleman didn't comment is you always have to ask your question, if not this, then what? And they could build a lot of bays that are going to have semi-trucks coming. And I do want to remind everybody that on the corner of Pima Princess, we have the MAC currently under construction that is going to have nothing but semis going in and out. And so that is something that everybody needs to understand. I've seen this application mature over the last 2 years, and every time it has gotten better. And I really commend Axon and its staff and the neighbors for being so open and working, and it's always a negotiation of what can we get versus what are they willing to give. And I would tell you that what they're giving is a tremendous asset to the city. I've seen Axon continue to tweak their case as the neighbors have given input and the citizens have given input, and City Council. I know City Council has been heavily involved in this. Last week, I actually walked along Mayo Boulevard all the way from Hayden to the end where the road curves. All the houses that abut that berm are below grade. So right now, there is no view from those windows to this land. And Axon is proposing yet another berm that will further protect that particular row of houses. I love the fact that there's going to be on-site restaurants because, as we heard many of the employees talk, when I am retired now, but when I worked, I had to get in my car, I had to drive someplace to go get lunch if I hadn't brought lunch. And the fact that the employees and residents actually are going to have the opportunity to walk through a beautiful green area to a restaurant, hopefully a pizza restaurant will be going in there. The hotel, last night, City Council heard a case about hotel parking and traffic. And I actually learned some things because I found that many hotel residents actually come via Uber, so they're not bringing traffic in there. And this particular hotel is going to be used to bring in people that are coming to Axon for training, potentially buy their products, institute their safety issues into their various cities. So those people are going to come in an Uber. They're not going to, or they might rent a car or whatever, but that hotel is actually going to generate less traffic than we would think. And that was supported last night in City Council by individuals that talked about hotel parking and traffic. A comment about home values. 20 years ago, I was the planning chairman for the city of Chandler when Intel came. And if you guys aren't unhappy about Axon, you should have seen what we dealt with when Intel came in, which was an industrial area. And it took us 3 years to negotiate that. And it was highly contentious. And I can tell you that I called several of my realtor friends that are still in Chandler down there, and housing prices have gone up 300%. There is unbelievable development going in around there. Intel has actually increased the value of all the homes in that area and the residents and the employees that come in there. The one thing that I've heard that I kind of am agreement with you. I'm a little worried about the phasing, because when you phase something that much, you increase the costs. And it also lengthens the time of construction. And there's no doubt about it, construction adds drama to a neighborhood. What you're hoping for is that that the end result will be worth it. I'm thrilled Pima Road is finally done. I complained unmercifully while it was being done, but it's beautiful now. So it's sort of like childbirth. A lot of pain, but you ultimately get something positive out of it. So, you know, I hope you're going to work with staff on that. I don't know what the other commissioners think about that, but I'm not a favor of the phasing. I think you should just build the place. I think that's all my comments, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, I want to thank you for bringing this to Scottsdale.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very important thing that he's bringing here. We're lucky that he's from here. He knows what it's like here. He's bringing something that most places like Austin, all other cities would give everything for. This is a driver, an economic driver. The city of Scottsdale cannot determine and will not live solely on tourism. We never can really depend on that totally. We must have different developments come in here and supplement the income for the city. We've had the state dictate to us what, you know, removing rental taxes. The city is losing money over this kind of a situation. We need these economic drivers to be able to afford the lifestyle and the lives that we want here in Scottsdale, that we expect and really what we're paying for. So the other part of it is that knowing developers, if we look at this sort of development and see what it really is, a single-use development, a single-use user developer is so much better than having a developer who is driven by cost and pricing come into our area and develop this site. There's very few companies that can afford to do something like this. And if you segment it out to different developers, you're going to have a mishmash of different complexes. You're going to have mixed use. You're going to have residential. You're going to have maybe even more density than that he's bringing forward now. We have no way of knowing what this really is going to look like if we don't find a single user to develop this area. This is a comprehensive, put-together development that is not so price-driven that they're going to cut corners. The other point of it is that because it's zoned industrial right now, if you do not look at some sort of residential use or somebody who's going to step up to do this, then we're going to be forced to looking at a bunch of concrete tilt panel boxes. And I can tell you that does not look well on your investment for your property. I am a realtor. I'm also a developer, and I understand what drives our prices and our marketing. I also have an appraisal company. I know what the values look like when you have these type of situations. In the long run, we're all going to succeed in this if we're able to find a single-use developer, build something, and not only is he building it for himself, but he's going to live in this area, he's going to be part of this area, and he's going to hear from the city if he doesn't follow the rules. So I'm an adamant supporter of this project mainly because of those situations. I can understand the residents' questions, and I understand what happens with the airport commission. They are looking out for themselves, which they are supposed to do. They protect the airport. But as far as development or anything else, they really don't understand, nor do they have an appreciation for what the rest of the city has to do to protect itself. So therefore, I'm in support of this project because of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ertel, you have another question?
Not a question, except when are we going to talk about the additional stipulation to phase in?
You have the floor.
Okay. I appreciate Commissioner Joyner saying, let's get rid of them entirely. I would be in favor of that. I think Bill would not. Do we need to work something out, or do we just drop it?
Well, I mean, it's open for discussion.
Well, two of us would like to not have it at all.
Sure. Well, I mean, that could certainly be a motion to be considered.
Okay, well, I'm not making a motion yet. I just opine, but I'm impressed. You know, I normally look at any major project like this from, you know, using categories. You know, when you first look at it, you know that it's going to conform to the general plan and to the law. It doesn't come to us unless it's been vetted by staff. So, you know, my question to Joe about, you know, is this legal? I just wanted to get that out in the open, that there's nothing underhanded about this. Nobody used that word underhanded, but it's just the idea that, okay, the zoning is there, but also part of zoning is how you change it. Negotiation, but not negotiation just between you and me, but within the law. I mean, there's limits, and they abide by that. So I look at it from the point of view as aesthetics, amenities, and economics. Aesthetics we've talked about. This will look good. I say the heights are reasonable. I understand it's higher than what is there now, at least south, not higher than what's there west. But they're reasonable. Lots of open space. Amenities, this is a resident-friendly project. We're going to have more residents. What can be more friendly to residents than to accommodate residents? Restaurants, I notice everybody says live, work. I don't. I'm German. I'm from the Midwest. It's work-live environment. And what that does, it mitigates traffic, as has been said by others. Economics, you know, there's more money for schools and other things. Boost for local retail. The traffic gets better. I was beginning to hesitate when Dan said we haven't approved everything yet, but he did say, I'm not putting words in your mouth, correct me if I am, it's fine the way it is, but we can make it a little bit finer if we tweak it some more. But it works the way it is. It's better than what it is today. It's better than what it would be in the future if this didn't get built. I've forgotten now if the city had to buy the land for the fire station at market or if they got it a little cheaper. But I know that, you know, the infrastructure that's being provided is basically a subsidy to the city. So that's good. We're getting money off of that, so to speak. But some might say that my approach is just too analytical and too rational. Perhaps there's a broader way to look at it. And I would interject that I appreciate homeowners to the south that say, this isn't what we signed up for. I can empathize, and I probably told this story before, but I'm an old man. I get to tell stories over and over again. My father built a house. It was a Southwestern Territorial, and you think, what's so unique about that? This was in Ohio. He built a Southwestern Territorial house, and there's nothing around it. And then they started putting in subdivisions over there, subdivisions over there, subdivisions back there. Over here, they got rid of the cornfield eventually and put in retail and warehouses. The impact on my father was that, okay, there's a lot more asphalt, so there's a lot more rain that comes down and has to run into the creek that went right past our house and began flooding. So the state's answer was, well, we're going to take your house, level it, and put in a retention pond. But, you know, there was more of them, people in the subdivisions, than there were of, you know, my father. As Commissioner Joyner has said, you know, that stuff happens. It's not fair, but it happens. So, you know, from personal experience, I can empathize. But as I look back at this, I had just read what our mayor-elect had written in her acceptance statement. You know, two questions that she put in there. Will we build homes and communities that organically grow welcoming neighborhoods? And will we attract businesses and industry that add not only jobs, but also contribute to our quality of life? And then I read a comment from, a public comment from a Morgan Sin, who sent this in. He says, over the years, I'm just going to excerpt some pieces of it. Over the years, I've developed many favorites related to this city, whether it's the schools I attended, the parks I played in, or at Axon, or the businesses I frequented. In the past year, I found the new ultimate favorite, Axon. At Axon, I found a sense of community that is unmatched by any employer I've ever had. Skipping down a bit, today I think of Scottsdale as my forever home. I plan to raise a family here, buy a house, and build my career. The new Axon campus will bring significant benefits to both Scottsdale and the surrounding community. The Axon campus will not only boost the local economy, but also provide job opportunities and help keep Axon deeply rooted in Scottsdale. When I think about the future, I find myself asking, why would I ever leave? I can't wait to build my future here in Scottsdale. And that's what I see in this project. Not just the analytics, but this builds community. It's a change in the community, but it still builds community. So that's why I support this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Tell. Maybe just following up on a couple of things that he mentioned about the phasing. And I know we've got some representatives from different departments of the city here, from water, maybe wastewater, to talk about, you know, how that timing of that phasing impacts the construction of these types of phasing, because, I mean, we understand now that there's not the infrastructure in place right now for this to be built all at once. So maybe we could have somebody speak to that, that subject, if possible.
While that's happening, I might offer a suggestion too. We're willing to live with this, and if there's a difference of opinion, I suppose you could recommend it with an opportunity for staff to work with us more before we get to council to see what is a possible outcome.
Sure.
But we're certainly willing to live with what we've proposed.
Right.
Well, I would say infrastructure is one thing. I mean, if you can't build the infrastructure, sure, then you can't build the project. But this is an additional encumbrance, if you will, to say, well, regardless of how fast you can get the sewers in or whatever, we don't want you occupying the property until, you know, those dates. So I would say I would prefer to get rid of the dates and let the construction dictate when you take occupant or get permitted for occupancy.
Okay.
Commissioner Young, would you please restate your question?
Well, I guess my question is, how does because the way I understand it, there's probably a pump station that's going to have to be constructed for delivery of water to the site. There's also going to be wastewater concerns as far as infrastructure with that. I know those things don't happen overnight, and things sometimes take a little longer than expected, especially with these types of CIP projects. I'm just curious if there's any relationship to the phasing, timing versus actual constructability of all these different elements that are going to be needed for the project.
Yes, Commissioner Young, my name is Scott Mars. I'm the Director of Engineering with Scottsdale Water. There is a relationship. However, both water and sewer infrastructure that's needed to support all phases of this project will be designed and constructed early in those phases.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. There any other comments or questions?
Vice Chair, if I may. Was the phasing your idea, or was that a compromise? How did the phasing come up? Because that's something new.
It is not our idea, although to be clear, we're okay with it because we will build it in phases, and when we have agreed with things, we stand by our word. You know, would we like to build faster? Sure. Will that be possible? You know, I don't know. And I think one of the positive things that has come out of our continuance is really detailed work with staff, your transportation staff, but also your water and infrastructure staff. They're kind of different parties within the city. Some handle delivery and some handle removal, I suppose. Probably a less nice way to say it. And all those things sort of have to work. And as a project would normally come about, those things would happen more particularly as we come forward with the building. You know, for example, we have a 435-room hotel, and you know, it could be a little bit different. It could be 430 rooms, and you know, those things could change. And so we'll have more particulars as we move down the road. And I suppose there are some scenarios where the city is prepared for the next phase, or the next 2 phases, or the next 3 phases, and some scenarios where maybe after the first phase they're not. And so I think we're open to having dialogue on what the phasing will be, because we know there are additional conversations to come. And I think over the last several months, you know, you didn't see Dan and I up here together at the last meeting,
Right.
but you did this time. That's progress.
Well, we've just heard case after case at City Council on how time added significant cost to projects.
There's no question. We would like to move faster.
My personal feeling is I would like us to take the phasing off and leave that up to you and city staff to come up with what works best for you.
So we have made the offer. We would be willing to live with it. Would we prefer it? No. I think at this point it makes sense for us to leave it to the commission to decide.
Okay.
Whoever makes a motion first is probably going to have some success.
Well,
Then I would like to make a motion.
Well, before we do that, I just want to make a few comments. I let you all speak. So we've had, you know, a lot of different points of view here, and I said this before in other planning commission meetings that, you know, a person's home is typically the single largest investment they're going to make in their life. That's near and dear to them. I would say from what I'm seeing here with this application that this company, this is going to be one of their single largest investments that they're going to make also. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of asks by the neighbors, and I think that Axon has been, you know, I would say there was a little bit of probably a stumble at the first application, and it got continued, and I think there was a lot of work that's been done between now and then. I think I know more about Axon than any other case that I've ever heard before, because this has gone on for so long. And they were kind enough to host a tour of their facility that I went to last week to really understand what it is they do. It's really an innovative company. I was thoroughly impressed with everything that I saw there. You know, there's been a lot of hurdles that you've had to go through. The neighbors had a laundry list of things that they'd like to see changed. I had apartments built, you know, a mile from my house, Scottsdale Road and McDowell, Scottsdale and Trot. I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to bring a crazy amount of traffic. I don't see the cars. I don't know where these people are, if they're all working from their apartments, but you know, it's one of those things, it's a perceived thing that with the density, you're going to get so much more traffic, so much more activity. But, you know, I understand that, you know, there's going to be a dynamic to this campus that's going to be central to this campus, that there is going to be activity with the mixed use, the restaurants, the retail, the dog park, the walking trails, the open space. There's so many interesting things that this project is providing to, I would say, the the localized area and Scottsdale as a whole. I think it's a wonderful company. So I guess with that, I would just like to say I appreciate all the strides that you've made. I think this project has come a long way. I think it's much better now than it was before. And with that, I will conclude my comments and entertain a motion if there's no further deliberation or questions. Did you have, are we at the point where we're going to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. But I'll say first, that continuance that happened last February, the newspaper said because we demanded more information. No, we just wanted to provide more time to work things out between Axon and Transportation and the Water Department. But at any rate, okay, make a motion. Am I reading from the right thing? This is why I should never do this.
Does he need to address the time extension first?
No.
No, because it's not in here.
He can,
It's not in there.
It's
yeah,
not in here.
he can make a motion,
Okay.
and then he could make stipulations with that motion or amendments or.
So I would make a motion for recommendation of approval to City Council for Case 3, GP 2023, per the staff recommended stipulations, after finding that the proposed general plan amendment is consistent and conforms with the adopted general plan and the Greater Air Park Plan. I should roll in the other one as well, right?
Your whole motion.
Make a motion for a recommendation of approval to City Council for Case 13, ZN 2020, number 2, after finding that the PCD criteria have been met, and that the proposed zoning district map amendment and development plan are consistent and conform with the adopted general plan and the Greater Air Park Area Plan.
I second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Vice Chair Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ertel,
Yes.
Commissioner Joyner,
Yes.
Commissioner Scarborough.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. All right, we're at the end of our meeting. Unless there's no further business, I'll entertain a motion for.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.